Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Hi, everyone. Happy Friday. Welcome. Thank you for joining us once again for the AI workshop series. We have another super interesting talk lined up for today. Want to remind you that we have recorded all of the workshops so far, and we'll be recording today's as well. So we'll put the links to those videos in the chat, and we'll be sending out the video for today's workshop next week as well. After today, we have just one more workshop remaining next week, so we hope you can join us then as well. And of course, for those of you who've been here, you've seen me thank these folks a few times, but really want to thank our partners for helping to make this workshop series possible. A lot of these organizations have really great AI tools and lessons and sort of practice available so that you can continue to build your skills and knowledge about AI. And we will put all of the websites for these organizations in the chat as well. And here's a quick look at our reminders again. This meeting is being recorded so that we can share the video with you afterward. We ask that everyone stay on mute so that we can make sure we don't have too much background noise. Please do put your questions in the chat and we will make sure that we address them throughout or at the end of the workshop today. If you'd like, you can turn on captions and we'll have a respectful, welcoming learning environment for folks at all parts of the AI spectrum. Here's a quick look at your Zoom toolbar and where you can access some of the key features if you need that reminder. And with that, thanks again for being here, and I'll turn it over to Leslie with Computing for All.
Let's see, Brianna, is Leslie not here yet?
I
There
see
she is.
her,
Sorry,
but
my
there we
mic
go.
wasn't on. I'm sorry, you all. We had trouble with the links for some reason. We both did. Anyway, Computing for All is a Seattle-based 501c3 technology education nonprofit. We have been working our mission is to basically make equitable jobs in tech available to everyone. And we've been running an L&I improved software development pre-apprenticeship since 2019, partnering today with the Center for Excellence in Bellevue College to run this workshop series. And we have been the IT cybersecurity sector intermediary for Inslee's Career Connect Washington initiative and serve as the backbone organization for the Washington Tech Workforce Coalition, which you can find out more about in the links provided here with the QR code. And the coalition is a great organization of coalition of organizations who are working to provide job training and help with finding jobs and career tips such as you're receiving today. So, and there's also, we have a coalition website where people can post and find jobs, find help from online resources that we have curated for soft skills, career navigation we have a live career navigator, and we'll be next week announcing our summer lineup of workshops, much like the ones that we've been running here. So welcome everyone, and thank you. And we'd love to introduce Stephen. And he is a business and technology leader with a passion for AI and a background spanning public and private sectors. He also served as Governor Inslee's technology sector lead, chartered with growing Washington's 100 million tech and AI economy. He's been a spokesperson on responsible and ethical AI development years before the advent of Gen AI. He's currently a product strategy and growth leader with a background in commercializing and scaling billion-dollar tech businesses across his time at Amazon, Microsoft, and startups. In addition, he serves as an advisor to AI native startups and civic tech organizations, including formerly chairing Seattle's Technology Advisory Board and serving as a board director for the Washington Technology Industry Association. He is an AI-empowered father, husband, Harvard alum, and Fulbright scholar, and hails from Houston, Texas. We are honored to have you, Stephen. Thank you for being here.
Well, thank you, Leslie, Brianna, Compute for All, and the Center for Excellence for all of the amazing workshops that you've been putting together. And thank you for inviting me to share a few thoughts. Let me just share my screen here so we can get started. Okay, cool. Can you see that now?
Yep, looks good. And I just want to quickly note for folks, if you can't see Stephen's presentation, there should be a tab at the top of your Zoom window that says Stephen Maheshwary screen. And so make sure to click that and then you can see what he's sharing there. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you, Brianna, and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for spending a Friday afternoon with me. My name is Stephen Maheshwary. I currently lead go-to-market strategies for Gen AI startups on Amazon Web Services, but have historically led responsible AI policy for Governor Inslee. And so I spend a lot of my time thinking both about the practical applications of AI in industry, but also around some of the challenges and ethics and risks that we're going to be talking about today. But today, I get to give you a healthy dose of techno-optimism, and we're going to look at AI through a futurist lens. We're going to see how it's reshaping whole industries, raising ethical questions, and even nudging us to rethink what it means to be human. So whether you're a coder or you're just curious about AI, I'm hoping that there's something in this presentation for everyone. So let's just dive in. Hopefully there are no Taylor Swift fans here, but if you are and you miss her concert, you can go on a much more thrilling eras tour with me. We're going to go through the 5 AI eras, starting with today's generative AI boom and ending with some of the long horizon ideas of AGI, or artificial general intelligence, which I'll share more about as we get to that concept. Along the way, we're going to stop for some real world impact, risks, and identity questions. And I know I can't see the chat, but if you have questions throughout the presentation, burning questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. And I think Brianna will read them out, or we'll have time at the end to talk about it. All right, let's get started with the generative AI era, which is the era that we're in today. As a quick background, AI is not just a technology that was introduced in 2022. The building blocks that got us here started as early as the 1950s with key developments in machine learning and deep learning. However, the generative AI era really kicked off in 2017 when Google researchers published a paper called Attention is All You Need, which outlines something called the transformer architecture, which really powers how text-based models like ChatGPT works. I can't see the chat, but I would love for people to just raise your hands if you're familiar with ChatGPT or if you've played with it over the last 2 years. Okay, I'm seeing a few hands. Okay, awesome. Now, I want you to keep your hands up if you know what GPT in ChatGPT stands for. Okay, I see a couple folks raising their hands. Well, GPT is a very explicit description of their model, and it showcases how important that transformer architecture is in AI, the transformer architecture that was outlined in that Google document. So GPT stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer, which is mixing deep learning with a large text data set to generate new text in response to what customers are asking. And that's what leads to the creation of something called large language models. The architecture is based on something called stochastic probability, which is a much more fancy way of saying that we're generating text based on the most likely next word. So in effect, we've recreated autocorrect, but on steroids. So I thought it'd be fun to just kind of take a look at some of the most popular ways that people are using AI this year and how it's changed from last year. Generally speaking, coding is probably the #1 use case, both for industrial use and for personal use. Creativity is increasingly becoming a use case for people as AI and LLMs become a lot more creative. There's health implications, and I think there's a lot of just general soul searching. So AI, even though we're only in its first era of 5, has already had a huge impact on our economy. 60% of the recent S&P 500 growth, which is roughly $11 trillion, has been tied to AI expectations. 71% of companies now use Gen AI in at least one function, and that means many of your future employers or current employers already are using it. And for developers, 63% of developers are using AI tools, saving at about 1 day a week, which is insane considering how much we work. Saving 20% of a work week, I think is, with today's tools, is an insane time savings. And I think probably one of the most harder to believe statistics is that in medicine, by next year, we could see a third of new drugs being AI discovered. So while this presentation is focused on the future of AI, there's nothing really futuristic about the impact that generative AI has already had on our economy today. In the next 10 years, if we zoom forward just a little bit, we are going to see job displacement. In fact, we're already seeing pretty significant job displacement today. We do expect up to 92 million jobs to be displaced globally. However, as with a lot of new innovations and new industry and new creation, we project that there will be 170 million new jobs created as a result of Gen AI. What that will look like is global GDP could jump 25%, which, by the way, is bigger than adding another US economy, just for context and size. Medicine is going to shine again in this space. AI-aided therapies may cure many currently lethal diseases within our lifetimes. And you can already see across different verticals the surge in patents on innovations that different sectors like life sciences, industry and manufacturing and transportation are issuing since the advent of generative AI. So the way I would think about it is the economic pie is growing, but the size of the slices within that pie are shifting. And preparing for that shift is going to be part of our job. So let's just zoom into some specific verticals and see how AI is impacting industries today and in the near future. So probably the one where I am most bullish and optimistic is in the healthcare and life sciences space. We're going to see a lot in the personalized medicine, which is how AI is generating treatment plans based on a patient's specific genetic makeup, lifestyle, and disease progression. And AI is going to generally contribute to more effective personalized care. There's going to be a lot around improved medical imaging. And in this case, AI can enhance or reconstruct or even generate medical images like X-rays, MRIs, or CT scans, in addition to aiding in better diagnosis. And in fact, we'll look a little bit more at that use case in our next slide. In drug discovery, AI is going to generate new potential molecular structures for drugs and accelerate the process of drug discovery and reducing the cost of medicine, which I am super bullish about. Another one that's a little bit more upper funnel in the life sciences space is protein folding. In fact, Google DeepMind just won a Nobel Prize in this space for their ability to predict 3D structures of proteins based on their amino acid sequence, which is crucial for understanding diseases and developing new therapies. And then this one is on the futuristic side, but synthetic biology is a very growing space, leveraging AI, because it can now generate designs for synthetic biological systems, such as engineered organisms or biological circuits. And the implication is that, if we're thinking about using creatures or animals for testing drugs or going through medical trials, we can speed that process up more when we can test them on organisms that are engineered to test for certain diseases. Going back to the idea of AI almost outpacing doctors in sort of the imaging space, well, in a recent paper, researchers tested an AI against 15 doctors of different levels of training to see how well an AI could read chest X-rays. The idea was, could it beat an average doctor or a radiologist or a specialized radiologist? And when we were looking at a case of this patient who had a lung tumor, which is highlighted in yellow, or pneumonia, only 2 out of 15 doctors managed to identify the lung tumor. The AI was able to identify it and correctly locate it within the chest X-ray, although it was a low probability score of, I think it was like 0.291. So this should tell you that while we still have a long way to go with AI, it's still already outperforming doctors as well as others in really highly specialized fields. In the financial services space, we're seeing things around AI being used in fraud detection mechanisms. It can basically simulate money laundering patterns using AI and ML systems, machine learning systems. AI can also simulate various market scenarios to help in creation and management of robust investment portfolios. And we'll actually look a little bit more at that in the next slide. And then probably the scariest thing is if you have any debt, AI might be even more persuasive at finding the most effective communication and negotiation strategies for debt collection to increase the rate of successful collections. But kind of going back to the portfolio and investment management, ML is actually in finance, ML, machine learning, has been used even before generative AI to power a lot of investment firms who are using something called algorithmic trading. And studies have shown that AI-driven algorithmic trading strategies can outperform traditional trading methods in terms of returns and risk management. AI-powered algorithmic trading offers several advantages over traditional trading, including, and I think this is not specific to finance, but generally speaking, AI algorithms can process and analyze vast amounts of data in real time, make decisions based on a much more comprehensive set of information, and they can also execute trades at a much higher speed and frequency than human traders, capitalizing on, sort of fleeting market opportunities. In general, they can identify and exploit complex patterns and relationships in market data that may not be apparent to human analysts. And in the study by JP Morgan Chase, they found that AI-powered trading achieved an average annual return of 10.3% compared to 5.9% for traditional trading. And you can see that here, which I find very, very interesting. All right, shifting to media entertainment, and this is probably where you're seeing a lot more of the developments in the news, but content generation, AI is going to be able to generate scripts, dialogues, and even complete stories for films. In advertising, not only can AI create the actual ad content, but they are now increasingly being used to target for customer targeting strategies, deploying ad campaigns, optimizing ad budgets, and even delivering measurements, almost in effect doing everything that an ad agency could do. I think that another really interesting intersection of AI and media entertainment is going to be in the metaverse. AI is going to be able to create immersive and interactive virtual environments for games and for simulations. And then possibly something you're already seeing as well is that AI is going to generate articles or summaries based on raw data or events, in effect, outpacing certain news publisher organizations. On the content generation side, I wanted to show you something that I thought blew my mind. The image and video generation space is where we're seeing a lot of development. And a few days ago, Google announced their video model, VO3, the first video generation AI that can generate speech and video together. So I'm going to show you a video, and this clip is an example of what you could generate with just a few prompts. And so everything you're about to see is completely AI generated, so the speech as well as the video.
Welcome to a non-existent car show. Let's see some opinions.
I mean, man, the acceleration is crazy. You look far, step on the pedal, and you are there.
I feel safe with him in an SUV, and it seems to be like the right type of car for him.
I think the range is only going to get better. Sorry.
We don't want to drive gas cars anymore.
Yeah, no more gas cars.
You can see I'm kind of a misfit here, but don't tell anyone. I've just bought an electric car.
I think it's really great for families and for little babies with all the safety features that these SUVs have.
But what you're really seeing is that technology is going to be very, very important in terms of how we go forward.
It was great to come to the conference because my husband loves cars.
I think I have to buy an EV now. I love my muscle cars.
But I try to stay as healthy as I can so I can make it to the next car show. Yeah. Welcome to a non-existent.
So I hope that blew your mind, because it blew mine, and I think we're still in the infancy of what AI video generation looks like. The only thing I can promise you is that I am real and that the presentation that you're hearing is live and authentically mine. But let's shift to the retail side. And I'm sure if you've shopped online or you've gone on Amazon or you've been exploring other e-commerce sites, you'll see some of the things that I'm about to talk about. But AI is increasingly being used for product review summaries and is very good at summarizing large amounts of text in general. So AI is going to generate review summaries for products so that you can quickly find more relevant information. It's also going to be much better at pricing optimization. So you actually might find that AI is going to drive different pricing scenarios to determine optimal pricing strategies that maximize profits, including differentiated pricing. So if you're worried about paying different prices for airline tickets or even different products based on the type of browser you're using, where you're located, or what your purchase history is, I can't say that things are going to get better because I think that's only going to get even more personalized. And lastly, on virtual try-ons, AI is going to be able to generate virtual models of customers for virtual try-ons. And in fact, another Google announcement from a few days ago includes AI-powered virtual try-ons where you can upload, I think, a picture of yourself and quickly scroll through a number of different outfits to see what they would look like on you, instead of having to just alternatively buy it online, try it on, and then return it if it doesn't fit, which is obviously one of the difficulties of shopping online. So then shifting to AI in manufacturing. We're going to see a lot around predictive maintenance. AI is going to be able to predict maintenance schedules. It's going to be able to provide the most efficient machine outputs and reduce downtimes. And I'm going to show you an example, a pretty compelling example in a second. It's going to focus on process optimization. So AI is generally going to be able to find the most efficient production processes by modeling different scenarios and optimizing for a wide range of variables, things that are very difficult for humans to kind of think about all at once, everything from cost, time, resource usage, and so forth. All of this is probably going to be encompassed in AI integrated robotics, which is in and of itself an actual entirely different AI era that we're going to be talking about. But robots will be able to use AI to take on complex manufacturing tasks with more natural language direction. The difference is that instead of programming a robot to take discrete functions like go left, go right, go front, move your hand in this way, you can just talk to a robot without much machine or factory experience to have it replicate really complex processes, for example, like doing laundry without having to program these individual movements. And in fact, I'll just show you a clip here. One of the newer companies in the robotic space, Figure Robotics, within 3 years was able to develop humanoid robots embedded with generative AI. In this clip that you're seeing, they partnered with BMW to use Figure Robotics to produce the BMW X3 line. Here's a test where they were able to successfully get a robot to stay in continuous production for a 20-hour shift. Imagine a human working for 20 hours. Like, there would be so many labor violations, and the pace that we would get cars would, is kind of our traditional production timeline for a car. We are really not that far off from factories that are in production 24/7. All right, so now we're going to shift gears. So while AI has had a positive impact in our economy and across industrial innovations, it's really hard not to hear about AI and then hear about how it's going to be destroying our society or causing economic collapse. So, I think it's really important to dive in to the specific risks and ethical challenges that are very specific to AI. So the first one I want to talk about, and it's probably the most important risk that we need to address, is something called misalignment. Misalignment refers to AI when it is not aligned with human values, welfare, and ethical principles. It's what makes AI safe for humans. For example, a delivery drone, if you told a delivery drone to be on time no matter what, it might buzz through like playgrounds where kids are playing if it's not, one, told to avoid populated areas, or two, to preserve human life, for example, or human safety. Another real life example of where misaligned behavior can lead to bad unintended consequences. There was a company that was training an AI model based on like for recruiting purposes, so for hiring people, and it was training its data set on previous resumes of employees that had worked at the company. And it learned to downrank resumes that came from women candidates because most of their prior hires were men. So perfectly logical from an AI purpose, but terribly wrong. And I think that the challenge here is that as AI gets more intelligent and more capable to act on its own, once we get to the agentic AI era, the most important thing that we can ensure is that it is aligned with human values and that it prioritizes human welfare. Because if not, then this is how we're going to get Skynet or a very rogue AI. And I'm really hoping I'm not dating myself, and I'm hoping that most of you recognize this reference. And if not, please go and watch The Terminator. And then don't refer back to this discussion because I'm hopefully going to show you that this is not where we're leading. Just double checking if we have any comments. Okay, great. Thank you, Sean. I appreciate I'm glad that you recognize that reference. All right. Oops. Okay, here we go. So for the next few risks, instead of showing you a theoretical lens into how it's working, I thought it'd be better to show you how they're occurring right now based on headlines hitting the news cycle. So bias is the most common and hardest to root out. It occurs when AI models are not trained on equitable data sets. For example, it might be used in predictive policing or loan approvals, and in those cases, bias could prevent those systems from treating marginalized communities fairly. Humans are biased. By definition, we're biased. And therefore, the AI tools based on human content are naturally biased too. And there are ways that we can mitigate that, but knowing that humans are biased and doing the things that we can to improve the training data sets for AI is going to be super critical as humans become dependent on generative AI. And actually, speaking of dependency, the next risk and ethical challenge that we deal with is hallucination and dependency. So large language models have this thing where they like to sound right, but can be very, very wrong and can hallucinate, what we call hallucination. They can create false information. So for example, you might be able to say, hey, when did Bill Gates sail on the Titanic? And it might tell you that he was on the ship, or it might tell you that he was on the ship in 2020, even though the ship sank in 1912. Relying blindly on the output of generative AI can be dangerous, and the stakes can be extremely high, especially in the medical field. For example, if a nursing student relied on Gen AI for a medical dosing, or a dosing of medicine. And unfortunately, we are seeing a significant amount of dependence. And I think one of the things we have to watch out is the kids that we're raising, or the next generation that we see, Generation Alpha, are growing up with a total dependence on AI without the ability to understand what sounds like AI and what sounds like human, and whether AI data is correct or not. The next one I want to move to is talking about deep fakes and bad actors. As we move away from text models to sophisticated AI use in Gen AI voice and image models, much like you saw in that completely AI-generated clip, people can use these models to now clone people's voices or likenesses and make videos of you or me or famous people saying things that were never actually said. And so this has led to people creating scams. They have led to risks of election interference, where you have politicians maybe saying things that they didn't really say. And it will be increasingly harder to trust what you see and hear on the internet. And as I said earlier, I promise you that I'm actually really here giving this presentation in person. And then the one of the other kind of last ones I wanted to highlight is privacy and copyright infringement. They speak to the issue of who owns the data that AI is trained on. Even though AI tools like ChatGPT or Claude claim to be private, I would highly recommend never giving it sensitive financial or health information or confidential employer information that could be one leaked or worse, trained on for other users to discover. So you might be putting a corporate strategy document into ChatGPT to get some feedback. And if someone else is saying, I want to understand the corporate strategy of, let's say, someone working at Amazon, if it's trained on your data, it might surface some of those strategies that are confidential to you to other users. Similarly, if any of you tried to use ChatGPT or a similar tool to put like a cartoon or an anime filter on your images, I don't know if any of you have tried to do that. I'm a big Studio Ghibli fan, and you may have seen people creating images in the style of a Ghibli movie studio. Now, this is a strong ethical dilemma because Studio Ghibli created a certain art style in Japan, and it strikes to the heart of how artists can be inspired to create other art. So as you're creating Studio Ghibli style images, should Studio Ghibli be compensated or recognized for the type of art that they've created every time you're creating something like that? And it's very unclear how we're going to resolve copyright infringement, or if in case that example is copyright infringement. Okay, I will wrap up our ethical complexity section, but there are other dilemmas we have to wrestle with. One is, would you accept, for example, a very complex or unexplainable AI that leads to positive outcomes? So, for example, what if they created an extremely complicated tax code that only AI could understand if it led to more equitable wealth distribution? Would you accept that? Or would you accept a life-saving diagnosis from a black box, medical AI? The other thing I think is really interesting, and it came out really recently, actually, just 2 days ago or yesterday when Anthropic released its new Claude 4 model, AI is going to be really great at self-preservation. How do we think about the lengths that AI will go to continue existing? So an example from this headline was that Anthropic actually gave Claude 4 access to a test data set of emails, which had emails suggesting that one, Anthropic was going to shut down the model, and that the engineer responsible for shutting down the model was having an affair. These are all fake emails, but it gave it access to those emails. And after it kind of had access, Claude 4 threatened to blackmail the engineer about reporting his affair to the authorities or to his spouse in order to preserve itself. There are really no easy answers to how we think about all of these ethical complexities. But I do think the answer is that we're going to need multidisciplinary voices like the folks that are in this chat today, the programs that you're studying, and the programs that you represent in order to solve them. The other vector that we need to understand is that these are the ethical challenges of AI in just today's era. There are far more that we're going to uncover when we look at what AI can achieve in the next eras. And so the next stop that we're going to go to on my eras tour is software that doesn't just assist, but acts on its own. And we're calling this the autonomous and agentic AI era. So agentic AI is the idea of creating autonomous systems or agents capable of making decisions and taking actions on your behalf without human intervention. So imagine asking, let's say if you run a company and you have an HR agent, AI agent, that can screen and interview and onboard candidates without any human scheduling. Agentic AI is the beginning of AI that can both self-learn and make their own decisions. And one of the most promising use cases already in flight is autonomous vehicles or AV. And I think this is really interesting because I was in San Francisco yesterday and I actually took my first Waymo ride, which is a autonomous vehicle, driverless vehicle. And it took some really incredible maneuvers. Like it, saw a green light. It kind of drove a little bit onto a pedestrian pathway. And when the light turned red, it came back off, it reversed off of the pathway, even though there were no pedestrians crossing the street. And I think one of the really interesting challenges is that the way society views autonomous vehicles is very interesting. AVs actually have a much higher safety rate than human-driven vehicles. And, human-driven vehicles are causing upwards of 50,000 people dying per year on the highway. But AVs, when you poll about their favorability, they only have a 25% favorability. So it's interesting that as a society, we have more leniency towards human failure, but almost zero tolerance for mechanical failure. Over time, though, we will not just be launching our own AI agents personally or in a corporate setting, but they may be hiring us or doing business with us. We may be engaging with them in our day-to-day. And we will need to understand how to trust or authenticate the AI agents that we work with. All right, so let's move to the next era. This is, I think, the second to last one. In the next era, AI is going to fade into the background. It's going to become invisible, like electricity, and it's going to be powering a new wave of a physical environment. From robots to clothes, all are going to be embedded with AI. We will have ambient AI, or AI embedded everywhere in physical systems. Robotics is a big use case, kind of like you saw earlier with the figure example, but we will also have AI embedded into various household appliances and consumer electronics, more intelligently talking to each other. In fact, we're going to have new AI electronics created specifically for the new ways that we engage with AI. And actually, I don't know if many people saw this, but OpenAI, the creator of ChatGPT, just announced a $6.5 billion acquisition of Jony Ives design firm. And Jony Ives was the lead designer for Apple's devices under in the last era before Tim Cook under Steve Jobs. And they're going to be creating a new consumer device to change the way that you engage with ChatGPT. There's already been a few others, some successful, some not, but that's only going to be increasing as we move forward. And all of this data, I think, is really interesting, is going to be talking to each other and continually personalizing itself around your life throughout your day. I think the other thing that we have to think about is, what are the economics of AI being everywhere? And it's contingent on a few things. If you think of AI as a car, it's limited by two things: its engine and gas. And the engine of AI is computational power. So think of it as the ability to actually compute, like, do we have the right processors and chips? And then the gas of AI is our energy availability. AI is a very energy intensive technology. And if AI is going to be expanded everywhere, we will need breakthroughs in energy production and compute power that will allow AI to be embedded in everything. And right now, some of the top models in AI, like are actually open source AI models. So Meta has a model called Llama, which is now free, and DeepSeek also created a model, which is a Chinese origin model called DeepSeek, is also free. In the end, we are going to see that the price of AI will just asymptote down to the price of computing and energy power needed to power AI. And combined with the computing power breakthroughs, we are going to see huge labor economic impacts. Labor costs will decrease pretty significantly. And the idea that white collar or highly skilled labor costs decreasing is not something that many people predicted. And general intelligence will kind of go up through the roof. And because of that, we could see AI being embedded in things and items costing less than $5. Okay, so I know I'm kind of speeding through things, but I want to get to the kind of last era of AI. And this next era is really the holy grail of AI companies today, creating AI that has human level intelligence, also known as artificial general intelligence, or AGI, or above human level intelligence, also known as artificial superintelligence, or ASI. Now, achieving AGI may require quantum computers, which is kind of the next wave of potential computing, and we can talk a little bit more about that, or new energy sources. And right now, the biggest the biggest opportunity in energy is probably going to be in nuclear and thorium reactors, which can provide a significant amount of energy, clean energy, that could power, the development of AI. But once that is created, we have something called the acceleration hypothesis, meaning once we have quantum computing and nuclear power in place, imagine a model that can design then better chips that run smarter models in a feedback loop. And that is the acceleration hypothesis. But the most important thing is, let's just skip forward and say that, AGI, once AGI and ASI is created, all bets are off. We don't know what will happen in society. We have a few hypotheses. So what's really important is that if our models are developed without alignment, remember that term misalignment from earlier, it could be super disastrous for society to have super smart AI capable of doing its own thing through agentic kind of mechanisms without regard for human society. The way we'll know that we did it right is if we have a couple things in place. One, we want to make sure we have a controlled takeoff, meaning that the capabilities that we're building in AI are scaling with our ability to provide governance, both policy and safety research and guardrails. The other thing that we really need to focus on is red teaming. So red teaming is the ability for engineers and philosophers and everyone else to really stress test these models, both pre-release and post-release, trying to encourage it to do bad things and understanding where those bad things are happening. Think of it as like an ethical escape room for AI. And then lastly, we'll need to create kill switches for AI, much like the way we think about creating kill switches for like nuclear weapons. I actually included this picture. I'm not sure if people know who this is. This is, I'm sure you do. This is Sam Altman, who's the founder of OpenAI and the creator of ChatGPT. And it was famously rumored that even with the invention of ChatGPT 3, the first model that was published in 2021, Sam is said to have carried the kill switch for that model in his blue backpack that he carries with him everywhere. Think about that. He's so worried about OpenAI potentially going rogue or ChatGPT going rogue that he carries a kill switch with him in the same way that the president is always carrying the nuclear football with the nuclear codes. Because the risk of unintended consequences or AI going rogue is always there. It's not as high with some of these lower intelligence models, but there's always a non-zero chance, which I think is really interesting. All right. If I'm glad, I'm glad that you stuck with me through now because this is kind of where things jump off the ledge a little bit. And if I didn't sound crazy before, this is where we're going to zoom way into the future and where I think a near certain reality is now going to sound like science fiction. So don't say I didn't warn you. So as we think about the culmination of these 5 eras of AI, there is a very strong possibility that in the far future, the 5 eras of AI will lead to solving most of our problems of scarcity. Think about things that are scarce in our life: food, shelter, energy, clothes. And by solving problems of scarcity and solving really important, discrete scientific problems and curing more diseases, producing more food and energy than we can use, if you can accept that premise, then this is going to lead to some very science fiction-y futures, including our ability to solve, discrete science problems like interstellar travel, nuclear fusion, and even creating ridiculously long lifespans. I think the concept that everything is cheap and available and that no one has to work is going to actually have a profound impact on what it means to be human. That is, if folks like Geoffrey Hinton, who won the 2024 Nobel Laureate Prize in Physics, is wrong, because he says that a perfectly trained and a perfectly aligned AI could still somehow lead to a human mass extinction event. And unfortunately, this is a future that is not that far off. There's a possibility that we see some of this in our lifetime. So as I close out, I want to talk a little bit about what does it mean to be human? And obviously that's going to change and is super subjective. But if work no longer defines us, a lot of the traditional ways we think about our needs and identity will go out the window. I like to refer to the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We all spend our time ensuring that we meet our physiological needs, which is like air, water, food, and shelter, our safety needs, health, financial security, employment, and security. But that may no longer be relevant if AI can take care of those needs through the sort of theory of abundance that I laid out earlier. What's left is really thinking about how human values might shift to the upper areas of Maslow's hierarchy of needs: belonging, our relationships with our family, with friends, our sense of connection, and our sense of self-actualization and esteem. Thinking about ways we can be creative, earn respect, and recognition. And I think because of that, a lot of our societal structures will shift. Government will become far more complex. And I don't even want to think about what government would look like then, because it'll be responsible for constructing a society where a majority of us are unemployed and have to receive income or have to figure out how we can contribute to society collectively. Think about how many of our conversations today, when we meet someone new, how many of them start with, "What do you do for work?" In that era, what are we going to say instead? So what I'll leave you with this is, through this workshop, you have likely heard about a number of skills that you'll need to use and learn to prepare for AI careers. You'll need to learn AI, know how to prompt, even learn how to build products with AI, how to use those tools. But in the long-term future, I think we need to lean into skills that differentiate us from AI. Things like practicing empathy, practicing courage, practicing soft skills and interpersonal skills, and really leaning into our humanity. More importantly than that, I think more important than learning AI will be learning how to become an expert in whatever it is you want to study. I think AI companies today, for example, aren't really even looking for people who know AI. Certainly that might be a prerequisite, but they want to know people who can obsess over things and become an expert over things. OpenAI hires, world-class cellists, for example, or world-class chess players. Lastly, and this is a personal observation, is that I think our health discoveries may be some of the most accelerated developments we will have in the AI space. So my plea to you is that stay as healthy as long as possible, because I think in our lifetime, we'll benefit from medical breakthroughs that allow us to live significantly longer and healthier lives. I hope this presentation has been as fun and thought-provoking as it was for me to give, and I appreciate you sticking with me throughout this presentation. I'll open it up for questions if people have them, but I'm curious to hear people's thoughts.
Thank you so much, Stephen. I think you've certainly given me a lot to think about. So we do have a few minutes for questions. Would love to hear what people think. I will also quickly share the QR code for our feedback survey for today's workshop. So if folks could go ahead and give us your comments there, we'll also put a link to that survey in the chat. And maybe to kick things off, Stephen, what would you say to people who maybe are afraid of the future that you have described, or are hesitant even today to use things like ChatGPT?
One, I can certainly understand it. It sounds like there's just so much out there that says that ChatGPT might destroy society, or that, it can be really scary. But I actually think the best thing you can do is experiment, and really just try thinking about the things that you might even Google today, and try going into ChatGPT and or any other AI tool and experimenting with the responses that it gives you. I think the case that I've laid out in my presentation is that AI will lead to abundance. I think it will lead to a better life for a lot of people, certainly a different life for a lot of people, in the way that we think about society. I think things will get a lot cheaper. Things are going to be a lot different. And I don't think we're going to be thinking about our work and careers as much as we are about what life is like to be human.
Great. We've got some questions in the chat here. With the power of AI when it comes to creating images and videos, how can it be managed to prevent it creating fraud or impersonation or deepfakes?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, this is funny because I talked about control takeoff, about managing AI capabilities with our ability to govern it. But I think we're at a place where AI capabilities around deep fakes and image creation is outpacing our government's ability to regulate it. And I think we need regulation to ensure that people are protected from deep fakes and that we're not creating fraud and impersonation. So regulation is very important. And in general, we're going to need standards around authentication. So I have friends who have built startups where if you join a Zoom call, you have like an authentication logo that says this person is human, for example, as opposed to, let's say, a fake version of Stephen or Brianna joining a call. And I think we're going to need things like that. But right now, I don't think we have those mechanisms in place that are widely used, and we do need regulation and these authentication protocols to mitigate that.
Can you speak about any emerging careers at the intersection of AI and ethics and the future of work?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think there's a couple of different ways to spin it. I think the future of work is really interesting because that is really how chief information officers and procurement folks within companies are thinking about, hey, I want to change how my employees are working. And so they're procuring different technologies and AI tools, things that might streamline how a product manager, builds product roadmaps or streamline how an engineer is able to learn how to code. And I think a lot of the future of work disciplines are going to be around people who know which AI tools can be used at which point in time in an employee's life cycle. At the intersection of AI and ethics, we're going to have, it's not as popular now, but I think we're going to have a lot of AI ethicists and responsible AI folks that are going to be needed in the same way that we have compliance folks in the finance sector. We're going to have like AI compliance, AI risk management. We're going to have red teamers, people who are responsible for challenging AI to do bad things in order to prevent it. We're going to have a lot of things around sort of testing, compliance, risk, and ethics. And I think those are things that are kind of emerging now.
What are some of your favorite tools that you use daily or that you might recommend to our audience here today?
Claude and ChatGPT. What I like to do is I am one of those people where I'm like, all right, I'm going to give you a lot of my data. I'm open to giving you a lot of my data, but in return, I expect a lot of personalization. So I have 30 different project folders within ChatGPT and Claude that allow it to access, things around my health data, things around my career, also life coaching. And it's really funny. I've even cataloged everything in my closet and everything in my house, and I fed it into ChatGPT so I can use it as a search engine for finding things, like giving me outfit recommendations or finding things in my house.
Awesome.
Yeah.
How will AI, oops, sorry, chat is moving here. How will AI be powered further in a sustainable way without contributing to climate change?
It's a good question. I think we really need to have a breakthrough in clean energy production because right now AI is such a huge energy drain in the same way that like crypto mining has been a huge drain on our energy grids. And so I'm really bullish about like the investments that tech is making in small modular nuclear reactors, which will allow it to produce a lot more clean energy. But those are few years away. I ultimately think that nuclear and other sort of clean energy breakthroughs are going to be the only way that we can power AI sustainably.
Great, and let's wrap things up with one more question here. For folks who are going to be graduating from college, looking for a job, or maybe they are trying to switch careers and want to work with AI in some way in one of those fun areas that you mentioned, like robotics or entertainment, can you give us like 2 or 3 steps of like where should we start? What should we do? How can we get more familiar in a way that's gonna move us forward in our careers?
Yeah, absolutely. So one is just get fluent with, using AI and looking at, building prompts for in ChatGPT, Gemini, or Claude, depending on what you have access to. I would start, the other thing I would do is, look up certifications. There's a number of certifications in AI and courses that are free between MIT, Harvard, AWS also has an AI practitioner training that I really like. And I think having those certifications will be a great credential to have on your resume as you're looking at these careers. And then the third one is kind of an extension of the first step, which is start building things. So if you want to go into entertainment and let's say you want to be you know, a director, for example, why don't you put together a clip from something that you've been able to generate through a video AI generator tool? And I think having a portfolio of products that you can build through AI, because again, the barrier to entry is very low. People who are non-technical can now develop apps, can now develop videos and movies and other really creative endeavors. Being able to create some of those side projects will go a long way for you to showing your enthusiasm for AI, your specialized expertise, and allow you to kind of get the jobs that you might want in specific spaces.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Stephen. This was a really great conversation, and we really appreciate your time and insights. Thanks everyone for joining us, and a reminder that we have our final workshop next Friday where we'll dive a little deeper into using Microsoft Copilot. So we hope to see you all there. Thank you so much and have a great weekend.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.